Yeah, it started, so I can see the numbers going up.
Oh, great. All right. Well, my name is Nathaniel Andrini. It is May 5th, 2020. I'm at home um, with the windows open and the birds are chirping outside. And we're going to be talking with Sankar Raman today about the COVID-19 pandemic. Before I get started, I will read the Five Oaks Museum body acknowledgement. So before we begin, I want to take a moment to recognize the body. Each of us is one, and it is the body that holds us here in this shared world. I invite you to choose a physical sense and check in with it. Place a hand on your skin. Is it warm? Breathe in deeply through your nose. Can you smell? The context of a virtual meeting can feel disembodying, but a chain reaction of very rapid physical phenomena are connecting us through our senses. We are still doing the physical work of presence, and our bodies deserve our attention and care now and always. Other bodies deserve acknowledgement in the virtual and physical spaces we simultaneously occupy. The bodies who built and who maintain the structures and objects around us, the bodies who cannot access these spaces, the bodies who are consumed, harmed, and killed in the places we now occupy, the bodies of the future who need us and whom we also need, and for whom we take on the work of healing, struggle, and change. Let us not forget those bodies while we continue to care for our own as we share this work today. And remember, our bodies should be comfortable. Our thoughts and feelings don't have to be. All right. So with that, I ask you to please state your first and last name, birth date, and place of birth, and also your current location.
Thank you for that beautiful paragraph, Nathaniel. Thank you. So my name is Sankar Raman, Sankarraman. I was born in a small town in Southeast India called Chidambaram, Chidambaram, on 16th April 1956. Um, yeah, I think right now I am in Portland, in Washington County.
Thanks for spelling your town name. That's helpful. Great. And so would you please tell me a bit about your biography or your background, sort of where you're from, how you
Yeah,
came to Oregon, where you live, what you do for work, that kind of thing.
right. So I am from India, Southeast India specifically. Um, I grew up in a small village in that part of India. It is, I like to think of it as like a growing up, like a, equivalent would be Kyoto, Japan, in the sense that surrounded by rice fields, thousands of temples, shrines around that area, very historically, very old place. And, basically a small community, very tight knit community. Um, I think of it like, I grew up in that village. Recently, somebody said, when I was interviewing, somebody said I'm a product of that community because the community raised them. It pretty much applies to me as well. The community was very tight knit and we grew up in that environment. And also, I went to the small school that was run and maintained by my father. But as they say, one thing led to the other. I went from that small, humble school to a bigger and better cities and better schools, and eventually ended up in Purdue University to do PhD in physics. Eventually, I ended up getting a PhD in engineering, and that took me a different route slightly in the beginning of my career. Started out in academic world, but then later on I joined Intel. Um, my first job, and it's always been my job. It is called the technology transfer kind of a job, and their main research and development facility, Intel's, was in Hillsboro, Oregon. So all the technologies, at least most of the technologies I worked with, came from there, and my job was to proliferate to high volume manufacturing sites, specifically New Mexico. So I was, in New Mexico, but I would come to Portland 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, sometimes almost close to a year, developing, understanding, getting the technology and transferring into that site. And it was okay when you are young and family was young and my son was going to the sixth grade. It became a big problem of continuous transitions, so to speak. So we decided to come to Portland and just to stay in one place. That's why we ended up in Portland. That was about 15 years, 16 years ago, and we have been living in the same place in the same town. And slowly, last a few years, it's been. I feel like Portland has become a home, and um, I really enjoy this place. Beautiful northwest. You cannot ask for anything more than what this place provides you. It's a beautiful rainforest, mountains, and seashores, and we enjoy landscape photography. We still do, so it's a perfect place for us to play, to enjoy, to share the community with. That's kind of a brief one for me, I think.
Yeah, it's a brief. That was great, though. You covered a lot of ground there,
Yeah,
and I'm learning a little bit more about you too that I didn't know.
yeah,
I don't think I recalled that you lived in New Mexico and you
yes,
traveled to Oregon during that time.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. Albuquerque, New Mexico.
yeah,
Yeah, beautiful place too. It's kind of opposite to here, right? It's like a red versus green and Southwest.
yeah.
It's a beautiful place too.
I've heard good things.
Yeah.
You mentioned a strong community back home in Southeast India in your town,
Hmm.
and I wanted to just just get your thoughts on the importance of a strong community. And um, it seems to me, at least, as a person who's pretty closely tied to your work with the immigrant story, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Um, I wanted to get a sense from you as how do you feel about sort of that, or do you feel like your work is somehow recreating or trying to recreate this very strong sense of community that you had growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I really think uh, I had a great time. It's a very small village. It's a four rows of streets and surrounded by paddy fields. Unlike in America, in India, especially my part of India, the grounds where the farmers. We were family of farmers. Um, they don't live in the farm itself. There is a small village, and then the paddy fields in our case is outside, right? And most of them are same type of people, meaning they have lands or they work the lands, or that's a kind of a community we lived in. And it is a beautiful community in the sense that I remember the time when we would be outside. Nobody cared about your safety, whether you're going to go hungry, anything like that. It is kind of the community took care of you as a kid. A lot of times, when we were going to school, the neighbors will ask you whether you had food or what. If you are welcome to eat in anybody's house, and the food is there. Even today, they will ask you, if I go to that community, which I do. They will ask you, when did you come? The first question they will ask. The second question is, come to my home and eat something. That is, it's a kind of going to their home and visiting them and eating something is very important. So the community always has been important part of my life. We were really tight knit, and I look for that wherever I go. And it is in effect, most of these places where I live, I was kind of feeling that community connection,
Mm.
and it's very important to me. And I think Southwest, for example, when I lived in Albuquerque, it does have that kind of a feeling, but you have to make inroads to that community. If you do, then you really do feel like you are part of that. And I'm fortunate that I feel like I'm somehow able to feel at home. Portland is the same way. It's kind of a uh, it's a bubble. I think I feel like I'm part of it, and, involved. The second important thing I really think is which is connected to my work today. When I was growing up, we didn't have TV, even library, books or anything like that, right? It is just the people and their stories. So when we were kids, we will have some, games that we play, but most of the time we connect with each other by telling stories. Of course, all of us are not great storytellers, but the guys, the kids who are popular are the ones who told very good stories. And it may be just that this person went and saw a movie and enacting the same
Yeah.
movie or telling some other things or anecdotes or whatever. So that really stayed with me, the power of storytelling, the ways to connect with people using storytelling. So I am fortunate that I'm able to rediscover it now. I really enjoy when I talk to people, hearing their story. That's important piece of my upbringing, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting how we can go kind of full circle in our lives, isn't
Exactly.
it? Well, thanks for that. It's great to get just so much more, go more in depth on your sort of background.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to just we'll shift focus for a little bit now. Of course, will be your background will be probably hearkened to in many of these questions, but
Yeah.
can you describe your experience with the COVID-19 pandemic thus far? And just overall experience, whatever you want to touch on, but you could also, you know, thinking about your last answer to that question, the impact on your community,
Mm.
your work or your home life or any other
Right.
facet.
Right. Yeah. This is, I have obviously never experienced anything like it in my life, right? Um, Pretty much the world has shut down. They are saying that because of that, they could actually see the sky clearly. Where I come from, over the years, it has become very polluted. And people, my family is saying it's a beautiful sky, which is like what it used to be. So basically, the world has come to a standstill. For me, it looks like really serious, um, because I am at an age that I am considered as a risky population. So it affects you personally, because you worry about what it's going to do to you personally and others. Because my circle of people tend to be my age. So it really is a serious business, and there is nothing I could draw a parallel. I grew up with the endemic, supposedly with the polio and other big things were there. Um, but it doesn't seem like I have experienced them, right? Smallpox or polio and all those things were very not popular, but it was very common those days when I grew up. And I remember the schools getting vaccinated, and a campaign about vaccination and getting everybody enrolled on this. but this one seems, much more surreal and personal. Um, my community, my work perspective, though, if I were to talk about that, obviously, all of our work has been affected. In my case, we really tell stories. We want to be interacting with the public in varieties of ways. Um, and even collecting stories, we love to sit down and face to face and doing that face to face and recording them, photographing them, and using short distance. All of them stopped basically. Our big event was supposed to happen April 11th. That was a live event talking about undocumented immigrants from Oregonians. That stopped. We have an exhibition that is ongoing in Oregon Historical Society, that was kind of shuttered, closed. Nobody's seeing it. So obviously, there's a big impact from my end, from our work. We are not able to have the interactions we love to do. We are trying slowly different technologies, using different ways of trying to be in the community somehow from a distance, using the social norm of social distancing. We don't know what it is all going to be, and unfortunately, the impact on the community as a whole is going to be there for a long time. Because I truly believe that we are wired as a human being to be interacting with people much more closely, feeling every aspects of um, inference when you are in the presence of another human being. But that's totally lost. And so, needless to say, that we are really worried about what is going to happen. But for me personally, right, I am here. My wife's family is in New Mexico. My son is in southeast Florida. My parents, who are aging, they are India. So we are all separated by distance. We can't even go and see. Everything is stopped. Even my siblings, my brothers and sisters, are saying if something happens, they can't even go and see my parents, who are still in that community I spoke of, alone by themselves.
Mm,
So, suddenly, the world used to be connected and small, and we used to think that the travel and all those things made us, reaching out to each other quickly and seamlessly. But it seems like now it is completely shuttered and isolated, right?
mhm.
And that's a big worry for me personally, especially for the immigrants. I think it is a problem because they have all these folks, loved ones are separated by a huge distance, I think.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting to think about how when you leave your country or you leave your community, um, you depending on the time period that you did that, you might have left during a time period of great, ease of travel and things like that.
Hmm.
And not that you'd take it for granted, but you always knew that you could go back whenever you wanted. And
Yeah.
now you're in a situation where, I mean, you named a few of the people I was going to ask you about. Your son was one of them because I know he lives far away, but I didn't realize everyone that you're familially connected to are far away from you. So, yeah, it's interesting. I talked just this morning with my partner's son, who's 13. He lives in Slovenia. And he told me that just this week they changed the law so that people can move from county to county and go across the country. They were closed by counties before, and they're already reintroducing limited opening. Restaurants that have a balcony or terrace, they're open if they have an outdoor contingent. So
Hmm.
it's interesting to see, country by country or state by state, in our case in the US, they're moving at different rates. So while we feel very shut down in some areas, it's very open in others.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that can be a little bit, I mean, for me anyway, it can be a little disorienting or frustrating. I have another friend who's in Argentina, and she is in full lockdown,
Hmm.
even though Argentina is one of the countries with the fewest. If you go to the list of all the countries, we're at the top, of the most affected, and Argentina is close to the bottom, but their laws are more stringent. You can't even leave your town, basically.
Hmm.
So I was wondering too, if these like conflicting narratives and changes from country to country or state to state, how do they affect you um, in regard to all your people being in these,
Yeah,
different places?
yeah.
Are
Y-
are they
y-
experiencing different? Are they experiencing it differently than you are? Do you think some of these people that you're connected to?
Yeah, I think so. I think it seems like Portland, we are really doing very sensibly, meaning we respect that social distancing. We are, isolating ourselves very much, and we are doing a good job there. But in India, it is like what you described in Argentina. They call a curfew. Actually, they use the word the curfew, which is the government mandates that you stay inside the home, and so there's no trains, there is nothing, there's no transportation, and they have only very essential services are in place. So that's why nobody can travel even if they wanted to, if they are in trouble. And because of the medical system is not as well organized for older folks, I feel like they are really, really at risk. Florida, where my son is, it is loosey gooey. Seems like they had all kinds of infractions, so to speak. Their work is going to be thinking he's going to start working, going to work soon. Things like that. So it's all like different. Definitely, it is affecting people differently. It changes from place to place. And fortunately, in all these places, it seems like they are okay, in the sense that Washington County seems like doing very well, and Florida seems like doing okay. India seems like doing well, despite all these issues from the numbers perspective. But nobody knows what is going to happen. But we are already seeing close to 100,000 people dying here, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah,
Um, you said something earlier that stuck with me. Um, it's the world has shut down. I think you used this. This is in the previous question,
right.
and it's interesting when you think about that in contrast to how communities really thrive, right? Communities today were connected through social media and technology and all of that, but when we were younger, when we didn't have those types of tools, our communities were really, really close knit and geographically extremely close knit, right?
Hmm.
And I'm wondering how sort of where is there like tension for you in that contrast, because you came from a community of close knit relatives and community members, and the whole town was sort of there taking care of each other. How does living through this time period um, inform, you know, or how does your upbringing in that type of community inform new ways of rethinking, the community response to this type of pandemic?
Yeah. I think, this is the danger of this pandemic, I think. So I see, even in this country, probably over time, the so-called what we called as community has become more and more superficial in its relationship, I think,
Mhm.
in the sense that, we are pleasant, dealing with our neighbors, but we really don't act like community, right? We start texting each other, even our neighbors. If you want something to be done, we just text them. We don't even call them on the phone to talk to them anymore. So we are slowly imposing ourselves to this superficiality of just, okay, to interact, but at the same level, the deeper level connections are getting lost and lost. Even though we seem to be connected all the time, this is a paradox, I think, in today's living. We are connected a lot in terms of electronically, social media, phones, texting,
Yeah.
cell phones, etc. But with respect to the quality of relationship, is diminishing fast, right? I think. Um, but I think this kind of a COVID pandemic, what is going to do is that it is going to be further distancing us. So we really now physically needs to be separated by 6 feet at least, they say, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And that is going to impose on you a further getting away from each other, more dependent on the interaction using social media and other means, which is really against the intuition of what we are wired, basically our human innate tendencies. So we are going to train ourselves, going forward, with this type of social distancing in mind, constantly wondering and worrying and being skeptical about that closeness, if at all we come close to. Right now I see, like, if I walk in the neighborhood, even, which is basically neighborhood by definition, in your own community, you are walking. Most likely, you don't know your neighbors. You don't see any of those folks face to face. If they are coming on one side of the road, you make an attempt to go to the other side of the road, and that is, if that continues, it's going to separate us even more.
Mm.
So I think it is going to be tough on us to reconnect and go back to basics. That's a lot of work to be done in building that community again.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, my mind is going in a lot of different directions, and I'm thinking of my own experiences through this pandemic as well, in terms of how people, and including myself, how we're responding to each other's needs for distance. And I have one early memory. I think it was the first, right after Governor Brown had basically told us to shelter in place or stay home, stay safe.
Hmm.
I went to a small trail here in Washington County on Cooper Mountain,
Hmm.
and right when we got on the trail, one younger person in there, I think early to mid 20s, a couple, one of them basically told us to back off, get 6 feet away from us. And she
Hmm.
was pretty aggressive about it. And
Hmm.
by then, it wasn't widespread news that we should do that. So we didn't even know what she was talking about. It was
Hmm.
only a few days later that we started to understand. Um, and here we are, that's like 6 weeks ago. And yesterday I was at the store. Half the people had masks on, half of them didn't. Nobody was doing exercising 6 feet. People were doing as they wished.
Hmm.
But then I drove to Trader Joe's and everybody's following the order. So it's like it is really different from place to place,
Hmm.
which gives me, in a way, okay, and I don't mean to like hijack the chat here, but in a way, it does give me hope because it reminds me that we're all acting based or in accordance with what we believe is the right thing to do. And those of us who are in closer proximity doesn't necessarily mean they're ignorantly ignoring the laws. They might think, more similarly to you and I and really value, um, you know, closer contact. I mean, I don't mean touching or anything like that with strangers, but just to be close and not to act too freaked out about it.
Yeah,
Practicing proper hygiene and all that. But it's interesting to hear everybody's take on this because everybody is really different, and part of that is because our global community, I'm putting air quotes right now, our global community has not responded in a sort of efficient way. It's so differentiated by place. And so we're all kind of doing our own thing,
yeah, yeah.
you know. So, well, speaking of like your most immediate community right now, I would define that as like your household.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and everybody, and it's interesting when you say you go walking, nobody looks familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're becoming more familiar, at least as I go walking in my neighborhood. I'm starting to see the sort of folks who do go on walks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm one of them, and they're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting to say hello to each other more than we did before, which
Yeah,
is cool. It's just from a distance.
yeah.
But speaking about your like immediate community, and I think um, the immediate community now is our families and
Mm-hmm.
our roommates or whoever we live with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how is your household responding? Beyond you, what you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think, it is okay, because I think we get used to it. We are very resilient in that way. Um, so, I am working from home. I'm running my nonprofit from home. My wife is working from home, and we really stopped other activities like, we don't go to the trail,
Mm-hmm.
which we used to enjoy a lot. Going every
Yeah,
weekend, we used to do some hike.
same with
Uh,
us. Yeah.
that is kind of stopped. And then we used to eat out a lot, and that is stopped. Basically, we are cooking at home and getting delivered. And we are probably getting all our groceries delivered. We have not gone anywhere, even to an extent that we are forgetting how to drive. It's almost as you
Yeah,
know,
you're saving gas though.
you are saving gas, though. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And the my license actually expired, in the
Oh,
sense that you know I cannot drive, because the DMV is closed. You
right.
cannot change the DMV. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. My partner's license is expiring too. So we got the notice, but
Yeah,
we
we can't
can't.
do anything.
They make you go in person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And it is closed right now. I don't know when they will be opening, but I don't know whether I can even want to. I want to go there now. But nonetheless, you are trying to adjust to the immediacy of the issue, right?
yeah,
When you deal with this, but I truly believe in the resiliency of human being, and we adjust to a lot of difficult situation. So we do the best, and work for the best, and that's what we do. Today, I we have I cook all the time now, and I clean, and I have reorganized our priorities and responsibilities, and we try to do some exercise and some walking, and keeping ourselves sane and healthy.
yeah, yeah. Do you have any sort of like like new favorites that you've found through these new endeavors? I
uh,
mean, I mean,
Yeah.
I know they're not new endeavors, but they're just everything is altered.
Right. Right.
But have there been any like, great things that have come out of that?
I wouldn't say great things. I really miss my interactions that used to be, but there are some aspects of it. We are cooking a lot. In the process, we are eating healthy. um, we obviously, when we cook only the things that we like, so we almost always liking the food we eat, and things like that. But in general, I think this is not our what would I say is as a ground state, most preferred state.
Mm,
So I long for the time when things would become the norm. In other words, we have to become get out and have that freedom, and all other things that comes with it.
yeah, I hear you. Well, it's for some there's been silver linings, and for others it's been actually more, oppressive than it's ever been.
Right,
So, yeah, it sounds like you're finding at least a little bit of balance, right?
right, right,
That silver lining might be you're eating healthier because you know all the ingredients going into
right.
your food and things like that. We're
Yeah.
experiencing something quite similar over here.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like there are some parallels with how we spend our time when the restaurants are open and the trails are open.
Right.
So, um, okay, well, so thanks for all of that. I just have a few more questions. I wanted to ask you too, if do you feel like your priorities or your like kind of your life priorities or personal values have shifted because of all this?
Yeah, I think the most change, I would say, is I feel like I need to connect more with the people. In other words, because it is kind of difficult and the distancing is happening right now, and that gives me more incentive and force myself to connect. In other words, I try to call somebody whom I have not talked, or I just want to feel like I need to check in with these people. I need to make sure they are okay. That need, I don't know whether I am forcing myself to do that, or it is just a natural outcome of this need for myself, that needing to connect and talk is forcing me to do this. But nonetheless, I'm finding myself more of that. I try to see who do I call today and talk to somebody, check in with them and see how
Mm.
they are doing. uh,
Yeah.
and I think is the most important thing of us being out there.
Hmm.
I try to reach out to people that we normally take it for granted when things were normal, or you are busy, you are doing all kinds of other things. I have the 2 hours of commute I don't need to do now. I'm at home, so that 2 hours is my time now, additional time that I have, and I could use that time to reach out to somebody. I think that connection is, I hope, stays with me.
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of my follow-up question. If you imagined yourself,
Yeah.
taking this further into the times when things become more certain. Yeah. Also, just on a sort of like technology usage question, are you using technology the same amount as you were before, or more or less?
I think I am using more. So when I used to work for this company, we used to do all kinds of, what we called as audio bridge. Those days it was more like audio bridge. We never did the video bridge. and I'm still stuck in that space. I think we were able to do business across, which we called as a virtual factory those days, which is what the technology I grew up, at least I was used to, um, and that was there always for me. And I kind of lost touch with that. When I started the nonprofit, I almost always make it a point to go and meet face to face. That is now taken away from you, so you need to re-go. I went back to the good old days of talking on the phone, audio bridge kind of a thing. So the technology is now suddenly developed fast enough, like Zoom, for example, that we use a lot. It developed fast to meet your need, and then we are experimenting a couple of conversations that is going to be live virtually. So we are doing 3 conversations this week, one this week, and the next 2 weeks we'll do two. They're all important conversations, asking important questions, but we are trying out using the technologies that is available to us. So from that perspective, I really think that the technology will evolve. The Uber kind of grocery shopping technology has come up. People are using that. So I think because of this, you will see new technology evolving. I don't know whether it will be good in the long run or bad, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it will be there. It is a part of your life. It's going to be.
Yeah, it kind of changes with us,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
right,
Right. We change constantly and it changes because we ourselves are changing it.
right.
And on that sort of note, it's a good segue for my last question
Hmm.
about society changing.
Hmm.
I wonder if I'd like to know if you think society will change in the future because of these moments during the pandemic.
Yeah,
And if so, how do you think it will change?
yeah. So it all depends on how long we have to continue this process, right? Unless there is a breakthrough in either a vaccine or a medicine, a cure for this,
Yeah.
and I think we will be in it, right, for a while. Um, so I think if we are longer, meaning we are going to continue this thing for a 2 years, 3 years, or foreseeable future, then the changes that it is going to impose on society is going to be tremendous. In
Yeah.
other words, if it is just 1 month or 2 months, and then we come out of it, I think we'll forget about this, and there will be some articles written about this time, but that's about it. There will be a memory of this lingering, but in overall, as a permanent change in you, in your value system, or the way you are going to behave, I think it won't be that lasting. But it all depends on how long it's going to stay with us. I hope it is not going to be for a long time. I hope it is just a short period of time that we are going to go through. We interview a lot of people, as you know. Most important interviews we do are the folks who are refugees, and these folks, they are, in grew up or born in some cases in refugee camps,
Yeah.
which is completely isolated. They grew up without an identity or a country in most cases, and they are pretty isolated, and they grew up there, and there is a permanent change in them. They are not. It is tough for them to go back to that situation. To the normalcy, The trauma that instills in them is tough. So while this one is not a forced exile, it is like a, it's almost a, always a voluntary one for most of us. So it won't have the same level of impact, but the amount of uncertainties, the amount of isolation, the longer it lasts, it's going to have an effect. So my thinking is, I hope it is short. My hope is we will come out of it with a little bit of memory, but not much lasting effect on us. I hope definitely it doesn't change our community from the distancing perspective.
Especially, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sankar. It was
Yes,
great to hear your thoughts, and we really appreciate you sharing them with the museum. And I think it was mentioned in Mariah's email, but it would be really wonderful to reconnect with you for a follow-up interview in 6 months.
yeah, yeah, that's fine.
If you agree to that, that would
Yeah,
be really wonderful too.
hopefully it'll be in person.
Yes, yeah,
Maybe.
let's hope so. We'll
We'll
cross
see.
our fingers for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, good call. And so great. Thanks for your time again,
Thank
and
you very
we'll
much.
be in touch soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate everything you do, and good luck with everything. And we will see you on the other side, as I say. You know.
Yes, see you on the other side.
Yes.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.